All right, greetings. Welcome back to Blackbird News, where everything is connected. How y'all feeling? Good to see y'all. All right, so it's Friday, so we're kind of do or try to do a little more open chat interaction. If you guys have anything you want to bring to the table, profess, confess. No, this is not a confessional. Uh, Anything you want to kind of bring up. I'll go through some stories. Also, it's a good day to call in on call in. I'll just the line is open on call in, so if you want to call in and say something, hello is fine. You could do that too. All right. Oh my gosh, where am I? Oh, hello. This is where I am. Interesting news stories today or things going on today? But I saw this right before the show. Um, and I thought this was at least something to comment on from the professor. Your moment of doom for October 14th. Can post apocalyptic zombies plant a garden? And it's an article about the Doomsday Seed Vault. Um, about how they're really stocking the seeds up there, but you got to remember that um, it was a couple of years ago, the seed vault flooded. The seed vault is supposed to be in a very cold place, Svalbard, very cold place, you know, perma frozen, and it flooded because it wasn't so frozen. So that goes to show you a the state of the climate, the world, the biosphere, and b our best laid plans might be for naught. The stock market is down 400 points. Okay. I mean, the stock market just keeps on going down, right? Or just it's been uh that's kind of been what it's doing, right? It goes down, goes up a little bit. Well, the stock market actually more down than up. Goes down, goes back up, goes down, goes back up. It's Friday. Usually a drop on the weekends, and then on Monday it'll pump up. I guess I don't know. Okay, I saw that Alaska has shut down all crabbing. That's actually something I want to talk about, and one of the reasons why I titled this video "Enjoy Your Delicious Moments," because if we keep losing um, supplies of fish or food in general, we're not gonna, there's not gonna be a lot of delicious moments to enjoy later on. Andre says up 800 yesterday, down 400 today. Oh yeah, right. So yeah, yeah, it's like goes up and down. And I'll probably go down this weekend, go back up on Monday. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about let's look at this story because I do want to look at this story about um, the fisheries. Again, please continue to tell me how this is nothing is going on, nothing is out of whack. That's everything is fine. It's about this. Let's see. Well, let me get into it. Snow crab, complete collapse of the snow crab fishery. That's what this is about. But this is pretty major news. Bering Sea King and snow crab seasons canceled. Canceled. While you're busy canceling people on the internet, climate change is canceling your food. How about that? For the first time ever, the Bering Sea snow crab fishery will not open for the upcoming season. Alaska's Department of Fish and Game announced the closure Monday afternoon. The Bristol Bay Red King crab fishery will also be closed this year for a second year in a row. The real shocking part, this is a fisherman, Gabriel Prout. The real shocking part is the total and complete collapse of the snow crab fishery, which no one expected last year when it happened, and a complete closure this year was equally as shocking. Remember, also, this is not just a limited occasion. Like crabbing in on the other side of the country, on the East Coast of the United States, is also collapsing. The crab industry and also the fishing industry. They're severely limiting the fishing seasons, or how much they can catch, because the populations of the fish and the crabs there are also collapsing. Creative Experiment says, you know what's going to happen. President DeSantis will reopen crab fisheries and make crab extinct, making angry fishermen happy for one last year before starvation. Probably. Sounds about right. Oh, sorry. Don't have my call-in app open. Today's a great day. It's Friday, so today is a good day to call in on the call-in app, because basically the line is open. Let's keep going. I'm going to keep reading this. Miranda Westfall, an area management biologist with Alaska's Department of Fish and Game, said the sudden decline in snow crab came as a shock to biologists as well. Back in 2018, there was a record recruitment in the Bering Sea snow crab stock. Those numbers started to go down in 2019, and there was no survey in 2020 due to the pandemic. 2021, when they surveyed, we saw the largest decline ever seen in the snow crab population, which was very startling. The quota was down about 90% from 2020. Westfall says they're not totally sure what caused the snow crab collapse, but they suspect warmer ocean conditions caused by climate change may be partly to blame. Well, that doesn't look good. Obsolete Optics is saying this is also maybe the radiation from Fukushima is contributing to this. Interglacial Optimist says Klaus Schwab told the Alaskan fisheries to shut it down, even though it's brimming with snow crab. Today's conspiracy theory chowder. Enjoy with oyster crackers. Probably, or they just won't talk about it, right? They're not going to talk about this because why draw attention to something that goes against the narrative that you're trying to construct for people? You have to keep it, focused on the cherry picking type points you want to make. You have to disconnect. It's funny because I was just listening to someone else who was saying, well, there's a lot of, the garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean. That's totally real. And that we should be concerned about that. But this climate change stuff is a total hoax. I was like, all right, you gotta like, so you can just, that's, humans doing bad over here. But like this other, in this other way, in this other monumental way that we're destroying the planet. No way. Like, okay, so you can totally connect things together when it suits you, but when it doesn't suit you or your narrative, you're like, this thing over here is happening and it's just completely, unconnected, disconnected from everything else that's going on. I don't know. That's when I kind of my attention starts fading out on you, and I think you're either kind of a nincompoop or you're controlled by something. And it could be there's a lot of a lot of controlled narratives going on. In fact, starting to be my theory is that there's controlled narratives on either side going on in order to keep people at each other's throats, keep people blinded, disassociated, not understanding what is going on. Sounds about right? What's going on, Rockfinners? How you doing? People of Rockfin, how are you? TCR Galaxy says there are more humans on the planet today than ever before. Pretty interesting news that won't be discussed anywhere. Sure. Yeah, you betcha. Creative Experiment says you can destroy millions of lives with a year of sanctions, but 100 years of mass industrial pollution, no effect whatsoever. Exactly. Nah. I'm always, what goes through my mind when I hear stuff like that is like, so, if you, and I understand you don't have to tell me. I know the difference between carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. I'm just, as a point of pollution, if you sit in an enclosed area with a car or a couple cars running, how quickly that'll turn bad for you, right? But somehow, 100 years of running millions of cars. I know it's more cars over time, but running millions of cars all over the planet, 24 hours a day, for decades and decades and decades and decades, and not to mention just cars, airplanes, factories, ships, everything, power plants, running these things 24 hours a day, all day long for decades and decades. Nah. But I bet if you put your face right up behind a diesel truck or a school bus, you'd be like, ha ha, oh man, oh, jeez, I got to get out of here. because the earth is so big. We're so small and the earth is so big. It's like, anyways, whatever. I mean, people think what they think out of emotional convenience as well. So there's that. All right. Just a reminder again, it's Friday Fix. We're taking calls all day on the call-in app. Whenever you feel like calling in, go ahead. So let's talk about some other things. Did y'all see this? The climate activist that threw soup on a Van Gogh painting. There was a lot of commentary on this. When I first saw it, I was like, my immediate reaction was, I was like, what? I don't get it. And then I was like, all right, I guess, it made more sense as I looked at the story. But all kinds of takes on this. These Just Stop Oil folks throwing soup on a painting, a Van Gogh painting. Don't worry, it was covered in glass and has a nice frame. So nothing, the painting was not hurt. I think, so the argument is that, you had to do something shocking, outlandish, even, in a lot of people's minds, despicable, right? You have to do something real, just like agitating to get people to pay attention to what you're doing. On that level, I get it. I totally get it. And then people are like, oh, this is fake because, why would they allow them to do this? The security at the museum, this is totally fake. I don't know. I don't know about that. Maybe I think they called security. I don't know. I don't know if it's fake. And then somebody immediately was saying, Just Stop Oil is trying to implement Agenda 2030. They're doing the WEF's bidding. And I was kind of like, I don't know about that one either. I'm not sure. I find it interesting that you have to disparage. And this is from, we'll look at a couple of things. Okay, first of all, we'll just look at this. Climate activists defile Van Gogh's sunflowers at the National Gallery and glued themselves to the wall. All right, so there are a lot of people who are like, they're dumb. And a lot of people were like, good on you. And a lot of people were like, why do you got to bust up Van Gogh's painting? I don't know. Obsolete Optics says, I bet Just Stop Oil are pro-nuclear clueless morons, just like Greenpeace, frenemies of the earth, Sierra Clubbed to death, etc. I mean, most environmental organizations leave something to be desired, sure. Most of them leave something to be desired. I would agree on that. But let's move on and look at some of the different. We'll just kind of look at some of the different takes. Somebody, hold on. I need to actually see something here. See if somebody responded to me. Oh, no. Nope. So here's one. Damian Gale, activists with Just Stop Oil have thrown tomato soup on Van Gogh's sunflowers at the National Gallery and glued themselves to the wall. What is worth more, art or life? Oh,
Unknown caller.
Nope.
All right, greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing?
Sorry, I don't know what's going on, guys. We're live on Rockfin, YouTube, and on Callin. Sorry, somebody like that call just jacked up something, so I don't know what's going on. Jacked up my Callin. Hey, that's not cool. That jacked up my Callin. Man, that really pisses me off. Sorry, guys. It usually doesn't do that. All right, greetings. Welcome back to Blackberry News, where everything is connected. Dang it. Sorry. It usually doesn't do that to my phone, but maybe I have to am I still live? That's what I can't figure out. Shoot. I don't think I'm live. Dang it. Sorry, guys. Where are we? Maybe I'll start another room as section 2. Sorry. Let's see. All right. No, don't need that. No, don't need that. All right. Well, I've started another room on Callin. And we have somebody already jumped in. That's good. Yeah, I don't know. That was weird. Okay, so what are we talking about? It's completely distracting. Messed me all up. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Random Jack caller. Anyway, so we're back to Damian Gale talking about this. Anyways, hang on. Just Stop Oil did an even wilder action. So this is something that didn't get any coverage. Laura Johnson throws paint on Met Police headquarters. New oil and gas will lead to crop failure, food shortages, and collapse of law and order. Human civilization, as we know it, is on the verge of collapse. She threw paint on Scotland Yard, and then they're going to arrest her. I mean, I don't know. Somebody put a post up that this is all, about these people being like fake, and they're doing this just to get the one of the things they said was they're doing this just to get people to declare protests illegal. And they were saying, BLM and all these movements are out there trying to get protests declared illegal. Come on now. I mean, sure, you could do that. You could say that about anything, but like protests are being declared illegal. It's been going on for a while, right? A lot of states have started to pass laws that are clamping down on protests or finding people more or making the penalties for protesting or doing certain things, making them much more stringent, right? That's been going on for a while. And not just about, it's about everything, right? It's not just BLM or Just Stop Oil. They're trying to make, call Trumpers or anybody, Proud Boys or all those people or, domestic terrorists. Like this kind of applies to everybody. So yeah, maybe, but just to say that all protests are somehow co-opted and just a ruse in order to give the state something to react to. Well, I mean, you got to protest, we're protest, that's your form of one of the forms of redress against tyrannical government is to go out and protest, right? So if you're, you could just label any protest that, it's just that's a controlled opposition just in order to get people, I mean, whatever. So I find that to be, yeah, you know, yeah. But there seems to be, yes, there a lot of climate movement groups are somewhat problematic. Yes, I can see that, but I do think that there are people in these groups, and that a lot of people join these groups, and a lot of people are involved in the movement for real reasons, right? So maybe you might think the group is not right, but I think that people that are involved in these groups, their hearts are in the right place, and so I find it a little bit convenient to just call all these people fake or controlled or whatever, and and then you kind of end up labeling anybody who cares about the climate or all climate activists as somehow controlled or somehow dupes or somehow you just can't paint things with that broad of a brush, and it can't be like either or. I don't know. Well, let's look at this though. Oh, did I actually? No, maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't save this one. And also, it seems to be that the people that think that climate activism or climate action or all concerns about the climate, the people that think that all of this is all just a ruse and it's all a hoax and it's all gamed up. Who's to say that there seems to be a coordination of narrative around this subject from a particular spectrum of ideology, right? So who's to say all that isn't coordinated, right? So you could turn that argument back on the people that are all saying this, right? And we know who all the people that say the same things about, oh, it's all just a hoax, it's all just WEF, they're all just trying to do these things to help the climate, and all of it is just, you could say, well, maybe all of you are all being funded by the oil industry or by people that want the status quo to continue on, that don't want any disruption in the status quo, that don't want any questioning of the status quo, that don't want any fingers pointed at oil is cheap, reliable energy from Tony Heller. I mean, Exxon or Chevron, right? Who's to say that all these people aren't repeating lines given to them? But okay. If you think you're super cool, just like, oh yeah, all these climate people, Greta Thunberg and all. Okay, no, all these people that are like saying the same exact thing about climate change and how it's all a hoax and it's all Greta Thunberg and Extinction Rebellion. All these people are all like weffed up and blah blah blah. Like, who's to say you're not all being paid by Chevron, which would actually be way more likely than anything, because they want to keep everything going. Man, I was just listening to AM Wake Up earlier this morning, and somebody, I think one of their guests said something very interesting, and it was an interesting idea about that the idea that the military was in possession of advanced technology, right, from aliens. Like yes, we've been in contact with aliens and we've reverse engineered their alien technology, right? Or we have all of Tesla's documents, right? And we know how to make all this stuff work, but we actually can't release it to the world or use it. Why? Because the dominant paradigm is an oil-fueled, fossil-fuel controlled paradigm. Like, if you basically, what he said was, you can't release this technology because it would be economically devastating and disruptive to the system as we know it. So the system as we know it actually has way more power, right? There's way more interest in keeping the system as we know it going than destroying the system and moving to something else. There's way more momentum behind the system, as and that is right? 50 years ago, people were like, climate, we could actually, if we keep doing the things we're doing, we could actually like destroy the planet. Hello? Anybody? And what happened after that was like, no, we're not going to allow this. We're going to continue, growth paradigm is of utmost importance. That's all that we're focused on, and we need more growth, more production, more consumerism, more things, more buying, more selling, more shipping, more. We need more of all of this, more people to buy all these things. We need more of everything. And F your concerns about the climate. That's actually what happened. That's true history, right? Because it's just blatantly obvious. That's true history. There is no overpopulation agenda. Why? Because we're fucking at 8 billion people, you fucking moron. You fucking lunatic moron. We're at 8 billion people. And, there's an overpopulation agenda. Dude, somebody said something about overpopulation 50 years ago, and what happened? The population grew. You fucking numbnuts. You don't even know what you're talking about. There's the obvious numbers that say everything about, what you're saying is stupid. Dunce capper. Sorry, I had a little bit of a moment there. So the reality is that there's way more interest in keeping everything going the way it is. And all these people that are like, this is just a hoax. They're just trying to make you do this in order to think a thing. Who's to say all these people aren't like completely controlled by the people that want the dominant paradigm to continue going? And there's way more evidence that has, they have more power in that. There's way more money behind that. They want that to continue. And but you think you're in the cool kids club. Yeah. Anyways, these people are like ridiculous. Anyways. Yeah. You don't know what you're talking about. There's no depopulation agenda because we want more population. We're going to, the system as we know it wants nothing more than to get to 9 billion people, 10 billion people, 20 billion people. The system as we know it, that's what they want. There's no depopulation agenda. That's absolutely just fucking horseshit. Other than continuing to do what we're doing. Just continue what you're doing, and we'll depopulate the earth. And there you go. And then you go, I was right all along. All right. I got a little excited there. But, the smooth brains got you going good. Smooth brains got you going good. The dude, free range Friday. That's nice. Got a tip from the dude. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin. Anyways, and the funny thing is, I asked this person who was doing this whole thread. He had this whole thread, right? It was very like, whoa, you got a lot of stuff there, right? And it was just in a thread about like, well, this is all, this is fake. Just Stop Oil, this whole thing was fake. And this dude came on, bam, with a whole thread, and it had the whole like, oh, they're just trying, they're supporting the 2030 agenda and WF and all this thing. And I was like, I actually asked a couple questions. I said like, who, where in this did they say we want the 2030 agenda? Because there was nothing in there where they actually said we support the 2030 agenda. So I was like, you made the link between them and the 2030 agenda. They didn't actually say that out of their mouths. So please point to me where it is they said that so I could go, oh, yeah, they support the 2030 agenda. No response. And then I was like, how do I know that you're not? You look very well branded and you have a website and you're very well all put together. How do I know that you're not being funded by somebody who wants to continue with the dominant paradigm of oil production and oil dominance on the planet? No response. Nothing. And it's funny because when I see these people on Twitter and I make comments like that, I'm like, tell me more. They're like, Mum's the word. So question the people that look like they're telling you the truth. Oh, yeah. Because they were telling you the truth about COVID, or they're telling you the truth about this over here. They're telling you the truth about this over here. But then they like go, here's a big bucket of bullshit. And you're like, oh, well, they told me that, oh, they know what they're talking about. Just seriously, you got to be very skeptical, very, very skeptical, more skeptical than you think you're being. Just saying. Oh, yeah. Andre says folks do not realize the war is all over. That's, yeah. I did a little more like ranting and raving than I thought I was going to do today. I was feeling very like low energy, and I was like, we'll just have like a cool, mellow talk. We'll just chill on out. Yeah. What else did I want to talk about today? Yeah, I was just going to, take it easy. Man, there were so many good. Poppy Davis has been really posting some very interesting stuff on Twitter, and I appreciate that. Oh well, let's leave with this, I guess. Called "It Doesn't Really Matter." Oh, one other thing I want to talk about with the Just Stop Oil. End of the World Party says the Van Gogh Just Stop Oil kids had to commit egregious vandalism and face arrest and jail to get media coverage like the Ivy League climate movement careerists criticizing them get routinely almost every other day on major media outlets. A cynic might say it's almost like careerists just don't want the kids crowding out their racket. So there, End of the World Party has a different view on this. All right, well, look at this. This is called It Really Doesn't Matter. Or It Doesn't Really Matter. One of those. Timothy Martin says some preppers are saying women will want unvaxxed men. Yeah, that's true. That's actually true. I'm unvaxxed. I was actually dating someone who was like, I probably wouldn't date you if you were vaxxed. So that's a real thing. There are women out there that are unvaxxed and they don't want to be defiled, if you will, with vaccinations. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Man, I'm on YouTube too. I didn't really want to talk about that too much. But am I offering to donate? No, this is not an advertisement for any of my services. Hold on. Why is this taking like 300 years to open this? I'd like to read it today. Well, I don't know why it will not open. Okay. Shoot. I think I'll have to open this somewhere else. What's going on? Okay, here we go. Well, I'll just read this. It's called It Doesn't Really Matter. Climate change or global heating is almost certainly happening, and it is almost certainly caused by man made activities, specifically our prolific production of carbon dioxide. Although, even if neither of these statements is true, it doesn't matter because our civilization is still doomed. For the same reason that every civilization is doomed, we have outrun our resource base. The hypercomplexity of our technological system depends on fossil fuels, gas, coal, and most of all, oil. Everything we use is made from oil, transported with it. Our food is effectively grown on a layer of it. And our economies are entirely dependent on petrochemical products produced from oil, which very soon will be too expensive to extract. When this happens, when the energy required to extract coal, oil, gas approaches that which they provide, it will be game over. The collapse we're facing and the suffering it will entail will be, first of all, unprecedented. Unbelievable. We'll all be walking around saying, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. We're already starting to say this. This is pretty great because, yeah, there's part of the reason why people are so resistant to even understanding climate change, and I don't know, a broken record, but is I don't want to believe it. I don't want to think about it. I want to know about it. Please don't tell me more. We're already starting to say this, particularly those of us who live in poorer towns or who work in A&E, arts and entertainment, and who have to deal with low-income groups. But these are early days. The misery and madness facing us will make these days of frustration and fear seem like paradise. Not convinced? Keep watching the news. See if it gets any better. The collapse we're facing that has now begun is also our fault, man-made. We have based our society on an intensive agriculture, a practice which demands more energy than it provides, and then provides a surplus which must be managed and defended, which demands more energy. We have created societies based on exploitation of nature and of human nature, which has compelled us to progress to a point. After thousands of years of intensive agriculture and hundreds of years of hyper-intensive industrial 100 years, sorry, not hundreds of years. 100 years of hyper-intensive industrialization when there's nothing left to exploit. Our ability to create more and more complexity from fossil fuels has only served to dig ever more rapidly through the raft we are floating on, while making it ever more flimsy and fragile, not to mention desolate, inhuman, and hideously ugly. So it doesn't really matter if the Earth is warming or cooling, if either is caused by CO2 or volcanoes or solar radiation, nor does it really matter how much or how little global heating or cooling will end up contributing to the series of punishing blows that we can expect in the years ahead. Who knows what will be the final cause of our collapse? Perhaps a nuclear war or a series of violent revolutions, or mass starvation, or a mass cull. There might be a real pandemic. That's probably all of the above, but it's unimportant. Just as it's unimportant what disease finally claims someone dying of old age. Cancer, pneumonia, heart attack, heartbreak, furniture. Interesting perhaps, but in the end it's irrelevant. Sorry, this is good. Now they're dead. This is a principal reason why I have little to say about climate change, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's happening or not. It doesn't matter if it's caused by CO2 or not. It doesn't matter if it is an elite conspiracy or not. Civilization is inherently self-destructive, and we have almost destroyed ourselves. This is not a doom or prophecy. It is a physical fact of the universe. You cannot exponentially expand complexity on finite, non-renewable sources of energy, and you cannot run a hyper-complex society on an exhausted resource base any more than you can literally split the moon in two. The stupendous technological and structural complexity of our civilization can no longer be sustained by the energy that such complexity demands, and so, as with every other civilization that has collapsed before us, the Mayans are a good example, we're entering a rapid period of contraction, manifesting as financial collapse, the inability of slaves and slave states to pay their debts. How rapid is hard to say. It could be a mad, precipitous decline over a decade or so, or even more rapidly, despite the emotional attraction of apocalyptic visions of the future. They are always a possibility, or it could take a generation or two, which is probably more likely. But in either case, by the time children being born today are in their 80s, if they live that long, a drastically reduced world population will almost certainly be living in tiny villages again. It's really only possible to maintain any other image of the future by assuming that will find a way to literally split the moon in two. The other reason I don't talk much about climate change is that I am not a climatologist. I understand the system well enough to know how drastically we have altered our biosphere and how this always has catastrophic second order effects. I understand basic physics. The CO2 traps heat, for example, although even that I have to take on a measure of faith, never having seen this stuff. And from a casual layman's perspective, I've been following the global warming debate for over 30 years. Nearly 40. I've also been paying attention to the world around me. That's good enough to reach a reasonably informed opinion, but naturally enough, I have to rely on the testimony of experts, just as I do with other subjects, which makes it very hard to determine the factual truth. This is because, first of all, expertise in an inherently limiting state of affairs is an inherently limiting state of affairs. You have to cut yourself off from other disciplines, not to mention life entire, in order to become a specialist thinker. What's more, specialist work inevitably occurs within institutions that are also inherently coercive and manipulative. You have to subordinate yourself to a role and to the way things are done in order to survive in institutions. Finally, the whole system distorts reality and rewards owners and managers who have vested interest in manipulating facts in the service of the system. To say that the intelligent caution is required before assessing the testimony of experts is therefore an understatement. What comes out of universities, research institutes, and the academic publishing industry is very similar to what comes out of taps, filth, which must be filtered or distilled in order to get something drinkable. The academic peer review process compounds this, selecting for over-caution and conformity, which is particularly disastrous in matters that touch on public policy. But this doesn't mean that nothing of value occurs in places of learning, or that all researchers and academics are morally compromised shills, or that thousands of climate scientists have, for the last 50 years, been in the employ of the Club of Rome, or that science isn't the best way to get to the facts of the matter. Science is useless in questions of meaning and quality, how good something is, or how meaningful, or how serious. But there is no other way to determine, for example, how much CO2 is in the atmosphere or how much it contributes to the heating of the climate than by doing research in the normal way and by suggesting and testing hypotheses in the normal way, something that usually ordinary people are unable to do. Climatologists, those specialists who are able to investigate questions relevant to global heating and its causes, have been investigating the question of why the Earth is heating for a long time. Climate science is still a young discipline, but thousands upon thousands of specialists in diverse institutions have produced a colossal number of research papers confirming that CO2 traps heat, and that we've been pumping out unprecedented quantities of it for over a century, and that is influencing the climate, making it warmer. There appears to be an overwhelming consensus on this. There have been numerous surveys and meta-studies, etc., which show that AGW is either supported by most climate scientists or by most who have given an opinion. The heavily disputed Cook study of 2012 discounted papers, which gave no opinion on the subject. Of course, they might well be wrong, but anyone who thinks that they are wrong or that this is an elite conspiracy, and I imagine there might be one or two people reading this who do, has to show how their data are fundamentally wrong and how the hypotheses offered to explain these data are also wrong. Exactly. The normal way to do this is by publishing a paper which addresses or critiques the data as it is, that suggests different hypotheses to account for them, and that proposes and presents the results of different tests of those hypotheses. Has this been done? As far as I can tell, the answer is effectively no, because it hasn't been done. This is, whoever wrote this, you're brilliant. Hold on. It's Darren Allen. Thank you for writing this, Darren Allen. Brilliantly done. You don't have, you just don't have it. There's the mountain of evidence that something is going on it's just monumental, and you don't have enough, right? You need as much data and evidence saying that it isn't going on in order to counter the amount of evidence that it is going on. And just one little, graph or point of observation is not enough to topple the whole world of climate science. It's just not. Sorry. Um, where am I at? Where am I at? Where am I at? Has this been done? As far as I can tell, the answer is effectively no. Even taking into account the appalling flaws of the peer review system, it is striking how few people have been published over the course of the last few years, 50 years, which have challenged the consensus and how flawed they appear to have been. Sorry, need more coffee for this. I know of no serious attempts by experts in the field to address and overturn the consensus that haven't been riddled with inconsistencies and flaws. Do you? I do not. I've been looking at climate change for quite a while. I'm just a layman. I'm not a scientist, but other people have been looking at it for quite a while, and it's just, there's nothing credible out there that turns it over. Sorry. There is not. If you have it, please let me know, because I will take your findings and I will jump up into the sky and say, thank God we don't have climate change. To take an example, the famous 1998 hockey stick paper of Mann et al. Shows rapid warming in the last 50 years. Its findings have been replicated over 24 times by different teams in different parts of the world using different data sources and different methodologies. Only one person, as far as I know, has seriously disputed Mann, Stephen McIntyre, in 2004, and he did not address any of the subsequent replications. There has, unless I've missed something, been nothing since McIntyre. The number of papers published by climate skeptics is very low. Again, the peer review system doesn't help outsiders get their foot in the door, but it is still striking how few of the prominent voices against climate change conspiracy have, outside of blog posts and opinion pieces, seriously tried their hand against the experts. Christopher Monckton, I think this is Lord Monckton, has published nothing. Dennis Rancourt, nothing. Piers Corbin, nothing. Now Nils Axel Morner, nothing. Valentina Zarkova, one paper retracted from her own journal, and so on. The list is very long, even taking the most unlikely estimates of authoritative papers which argue against anthropogenic global warming. The number is a minute fraction of those in support of it. Not that we really need scientists to tell us the climate is changing. Any conversation with an 80-year-old pretty much anywhere on Earth will do, particularly in dry climates. Again, now we're getting into observational data. What the people that tell you that they're telling you the truth, they like to bring up the Alan Savory clip of where you got to go out into the field. You got to go get the observational data. You got to actually look at what's going on in the world. Yes, that is science. And if you are, the people that deny climate change don't have any, they're denying all the observational data in order to bring it, to make it about models or something. There's no observational data in support of what they're saying. And they ignore it on purpose in order to continue saying what they're saying. Please pay attention to what these people are telling you and what they're not telling you in order to run their story at you. Oh, there's a squirrel on my back porch. Squirrel break. Okay, hold on. One reason that nobody is seriously trying to debunk people like Mann is because so many people can see that the climate is changing, that all kinds of odd things are happening. The question now is why? Have we influenced the heat of the earth by setting fire to it, or is it because the clouds behaving strangely, or solar flares, or some other cause? Many climate change denialists, those who accept that global temperatures are rising, believe it is because of a natural change in climate. Here we go. Quite the coincidence that the climate has suddenly, by itself, so to speak, precipitously started heating up, just as we've finished burning every energy-releasing substance on Earth. But there you have it. It's just bad luck. Apparently, nothing to do with CO2, and therefore nothing to do with us. Phew. Some climate change deniers point out that the percentage of CO2 in the atmosphere relative to other gases is minuscule. They'll call them molecules. that this amount is small relative to the vast quantities of inert gas in the atmosphere. No more means that it has no effect on climate than doubling or halving trace chemicals in your body, which make up a minute percentage of your body mass, wouldn't negatively, even catastrophically affect your health, right? You have glyphosate in your system. It's not a lot of glyphosate, it's a little bit, but that's enough to really mess things up, isn't it? Cause some cancers and whatnot. Ask someone who makes this objection to eat a minuscule piece of death cap mushroom and then ask why he's not too keen on the idea. Another common objection is, oh, I can't be bothered. Check for yourself. They're pretty easy to address, but it doesn't matter. So what if CO2 doesn't turn out to be driving global heating? Speaking personally, if I were confronted by good evidence and analysis demonstrating that yes, in truth, our climate is changing now after 100 years of tearing up the earth and setting fire to it because of an almost miraculous coincidence, if it were demonstrated to me beyond all reasonable doubt that changing cloud cover has nothing to do with the buildup of CO2, or that CO2 has nothing to do with any local or global changes of climate, such as the abrupt climate change that has disrupted early civilizations in the Fertile Crescent, or that solar radiation is behind natural cycles of heating and cooling, or even that the climate is absolutely the same as it has ever been over the past 500 years, or is even cooling down, I would accept these things. Why not? I don't care either way, and I put it to you, neither should anyone else. Climate change deniers care because, firstly, many of them are fair obsessed with elite tittle-tattle. It's useful and interesting to read about the mustache-twirling plans of cartoon monsters like Rockefeller, Kissinger, and Schwab, but a lot of people on the dissident extremes have a morbid obsession with the bad guys, which blinds them to the second and most important reason they tend to care about climate change and make a big deal of the fact it's a hoax, which is that they are unwilling to critically explore the civilized technocratic system as a whole. They're anti-human, these people. Because humans are fine. We're just fine. Everything we're doing is fine. Blindness to the whole problem is why climate change deniers and the like assume that just because powerful vested interests are using the pretext of global heating as a means to further the development of that system by, for example, closing down farms and generating artificial food scarcity, it must be a conspiracy, a lie. The pseudo-pandemic didn't help there, it being largely an elite-generated and professionally maintained illusion. I'm just reading this. Although it's worth bearing in mind that there was a virus and it was killing some people, it is actually quite rare for power to lie outright. It is much more effective when propaganda is based on truth, clearly communicated. As Goebbels, or however you want to say it, used to say, everybody must know what the situation is. Obviously, nobody knew about the crime of the Nazis, the Holocaust, but this wasn't obscured with lies. It was obscured with facts. For many years, it did not serve those in power to accept the fact of AGW, so it was ignored or strenuously denied across the media spectrum. What did I just said this earlier, anyways. It's just repeating. There was an intent, right? Bunch of scientists got together, whoever, it doesn't matter who it was, MIT, Club of Rome, whoever, doesn't matter. A bunch of different people, wasn't just them. A bunch of different people came to the same conclusion at the same time. Or even over the years. I'm going to read this to the end because it's good and we're almost done. It was ignored or strenuously denied across the media spectrum. Now, some sectors, God dang, I can't read right now. Some sectors of the owner management classes find their interests are best served by accepting or pretending that the earth is heating up and that we might be responsible. So it is accepted as fact and promoted as something for all of us to fear. Solutions are then offered: net zero, insect protein, climate lockdowns, digital currencies, closing down farms, shutting down the bank accounts of dissidents, in order to assuage this fear. Just as similar system-enhancing measures were and are offered to assuage the fear of commies, drug barons, terrorists, the pandemic, and most recently Putin, who, as I write, is the reason we're all going broke, getting fired, starving, hungry, and presumably will be offered UBI to defeat. Meanwhile, nothing has changed in the real world because nature is uninterested in politics. We're still filling the air with pollution, we're still dredging the seas empty, and we're still stripping our arable land of soil. We're still guzzling unimaginable quanta of energy. There doesn't seem to be too much being done about the ruinous energy requirements of the internet. Can't think why. We're still running out of oil. We're still running out of gas, even if Russia's were available. We're still running out of essential metals. We're still running out of sand, usable sand, of course. Desert sand is useless for concrete. We're still running out of water, and the use of all of these materials is rising at the same exponential rate as urban populations. And so society is collapsing before our eyes. Which brings us on to green energy. While climate change deniers care about the causes of global heating because they are unwilling to accept the nature of the civilized system, climate change activists care about the causes of global heating because they are unwilling to accept the nature of the civilized system. That's right, they are functionally the same, opposites, a false dichotomy. The only difference between the two groups is that the latter, largely made up of the management class, is eager to manage a transition to a brave new world of magical energy. Alas, they are, as is well known to anyone without an ideological commitment to technology, completely deluded. Our resource base will soon be unavailable to us. We do not have what we need to make a transition to any other kind of energy. Both green energy, which is intermittent and so effectively useless, and, to a lesser extent, nuclear energy, demand massive inputs of energy, making their net output low, and vast quantities of non-renewable resources, as does the world they power. We cannot build and maintain an infrastructure that requires enormous quantities of plastic, copper. How are we going to extract all the copper green tech needs from depleted mines and smelt it all without coal, lithium, graphite, sand, oil, and water, as well as enormous quanta of energy to make the transition from non-renewables to green and support the shortfall in energy, which we don't have? Even with miraculous new batteries that run on plentiful chemicals, the whole system, all of its roads, wires, fertilizers, switches, sealants, pipes, rails, processors, diodes, engines, turbines, cartons, and so on and on and on, requires resources which we don't have. It's not so much that we're running out of resources. Rather, they are becoming too costly to get at. There is no point in extracting, refining, and transporting a barrel of oil if it takes a barrel of oil to do it. This problem can be temporarily delayed by discovering other cheap sources of energy. England solved the problem of running out of wood by turning to coal, and the U.S. solved the problem of running out of oil by fracking. But we have now reached the bottom of the barrel, the dregs, and there are no more barrels we can open. Disciples of the worldwide religion of technolatry believe that our problems will be solved by adding more technological complexity to the world, which is precisely the cause of them. Nobody has solved the problem of powering a society that can only solve its problems by adding complexity with finite resources, or ever can, because the power has to run out. The EROI, the ratio of energy returned to energy invested to extract and refine it, in the U.S. has gone from 100 to 1, 100 barrels of oil produced from 1 barrel of oil invested, down to 15 to 1 in the last 70 years. There is no way to reverse this. The only solution is to find a perfect, replacement. The only solution is to find a perfect replacement for crude oil, which is impossible, or radically simplify society, something which no society has ever done. People with nominal power do try to simplify society sometimes and appear to be trying now, with the chaotically controlled mega crash we're in the middle of, but they cannot succeed. Attempts by the owners of the system to limit consumption and pump funny money into the economy, which appears to have been the primary purpose of lockdowns, or to generate scarcity, which is probably behind the throttling of agricultural production, or to develop even more invasive techniques of control, such as digital currencies and techno-fascist smart cities, which seems to be what our toppermost technocrats are planning at the moment, using, it seems, the energy crisis as a pretext, are as futile as attempts by the managers of the system to protest or disrupt oil and gas production. They are futile because the system has its own requirements, its own laws, and its own limits, none of which are amenable to the mad fantasies of civilized human beings. This doesn't mean that the owners or managers of the system, elite and professionals, the latter often ignored by dissidents who are usually professionals themselves, are any less responsible. Difficult as it is for many people to accept, it is possible to criticize the activities of those in power while also accepting that they are relatively powerless, just as it is possible to condemn the cold, heartless, hyper-wealthy, while also condemning the moronic, masochistic insanity of the masses, just as, finally, it is possible to accept the man-made activities might be responsible for global heating, while also refusing to accept the solutions and fear porn the system proffers to deal with it. But I'll say it once more, and this time in bold, it doesn't really matter. Prove, beyond all doubt, that AGW is a myth and we're still doomed. Remove all our elites and professionals from power and organize an inoffensive socialist vegan paradise, or, if you prefer, an offensive capitalist meat-eating paradise, and nothing will or can change. Replace all our plastics in cars and engines and copper wires with some kind of magical leaf, and we're still ruined. Is he talking about hemp? That's funny. Exactly, because it's a problem of scale. If only hemp were legalized, we can change everything. We are guaranteed to self-destruct while the inhuman, unnatural technocratic system and the ego it feeds from rules us. It's almost impossible for socialists and capitalists to accept this because the former want to manage or write thrilling opinion pieces about it, the system, and the latter want to own it, and they're all addicted to it. But it's the truth, and as it is the truth, although I enjoy thinking about it and even presenting a case for it, I don't need to convince anyone of it, and neither do you, because sooner or later the truth becomes impossible to ignore. So chill out, go into the garden, chat up that girl who works in the bookshop, and cook a nice curry. That was fantastic. Man, let me tell you how fantastic that was. That was one of the best articles I've read in a really long time. That guy gets it. What's his name again? Darren Allen. Man, good job. Kudos. Salutations. Really laid it out in a very, very plain fashion, and really summed up. I mean, if anything, summed up a lot of the philosophy I have around what's going on, or a lot of the views I have around what's going on. Good stuff. All right. Everybody read that article and become smarter. Curry. Curry is delicious. I actually cook a very good curry myself. Tofu. Do I put tofu in it? Actually, mostly vegetables. Mostly vegetables. I don't know if I even do the tofu in the curry. So if you're ever in town, if you ever want to swing by and hit me up for a nice curry, bowl of curry, I'll cook you some. All right, guys. That pretty much does it for me. Thank you for hanging out on the Callin, Rockfins, and the YouTubes. Has anybody bought me a coffee yet today? We'll check it out. No, not yet today. I did get a tip on Rockfin. Did I get any more tips on Rockfin? Nay. Thanks all. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow at the 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And until next time, peace.